Ah, you know me, I don't know you, and I'm a bad boy. My diaper needs changed and I didn't go number 1 or 2. If you spank me, my power only increases. I'm not doing my taxes, you can't make me. All of these disjointed sentences have one thing in common. They all can describe 2022's The Batman. Except for the first sentence. That's just a fact. Please help, it's leaking. So the Batman, not to be confused with just Batman, released on March 4th, 2022. It is getting pretty good reviews, and audience and critics alike seem to love Matt Reeves' take on the Caped Crusader. It's been built up over the last 4 years as a gritty detective flick that will actually bring Batman back to his comic roots. Sprinkle in some actually great actors, and people were losing their goddamn minds when the teaser and subsequent trailer was released. I'm not jesting. People treated this like it was the second coming of Jesus, and I was in that clique. It was fun watching videos and clips of the cast having a genuine love for the source material. Now, the question pops up, do I like this movie, and was it worth the hype? And to that question, I say, it's complicated, man. To get this out of the way, I need to say this. The Batman is a damn miracle, and I encourage every one of you to watch this movie so we can get more art from Matt Reeves. This movie is faithful to the source material, and if you just want some good Batman media, then you'll have a good time. It perfectly captures who Batman is as a character, and it is in no small part to the acting of Robert Pattinson. His performance is exceptional, and is honestly now my favorite live-action version of the character. Robert Pattinson just fully captures the angst and sorrow that Bruce feels throughout the film. If Pattinson's performance didn't land, the film would fall flat given, like its title suggests, it is about Batman. This movie explores Bruce's mental state and is basically a character study of Batman, which is such a relief. Finally, we have a Batman movie that is about Batman and isn't misrepresenting the character. Everyone else is giving it their all as well. Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman is great, although some of her lines are a bit on the nose. That's not her fault, it's more of the writing, which we'll get to in a moment. The film isn't only a detective story, but a romance, and is handled well. She and Pattinson have excellent chemistry and are a delight whenever they share the spotlight. Overall, I can safely say that she is now the definitive live-action version of Catwoman. It just beats out Michelle Pfeiffer in terms of comic accuracy. Jeffrey Wright plays Jim Gordon and does a solid enough job. Not anything noteworthy, but I do love his bromance with Pattinson. The actual best parts of the movie are just him and Batman trying to solve the ever-increasing crimes of the Riddler, which is very entertaining, I must say. I came into the film thinking Alfred would be the heart of it, and to my surprise, Andy Serkis is barely in it. With what few screen time Andy Serkis has, he uses it effectively, giving a brutally honest and new take on a character that we've seen 1,000 times. Colin Farrell is not in this movie, it's just the Penguin being recorded. John Turturro plays Carmine Falcone, and is decent. I didn't really enjoy his character, but again, that's not his fault. Last but not least, we have Paul Diano as the Riddler. Paul Diano is my favorite actor of all time, and going in, I had huge expectations. He has the ability to make me forget that I'm watching a movie, which is a skill I can't say most have. And like Andy Serkis, he gives a unique and modern interpretation that we haven't seen before. But like good old Andy, he is barely in the movie, and it drives me insane. This is where my biggest and possibly only problem pops up. The writing. The script angers the hell out of me because I like all the individual concepts this movie brings forward, but it can't for the life of it stick to one. I love how for the first 30 minutes it's a neo-noir and sets up Bruce's baggage, but then it goes to the blooming romance of the two, then to the detective elements, then to an action movie, which I can't lie was done well, but shut it! It's not like I'm not invested. Batman is in every single scene, so I still care about what's happening in the plot. However, it doesn't spend enough time to nurture these themes because it has to rush to the next sloppily developed one. All these ideas of the movie need their own individual film to blossom and flourish. We got Batman's no-kill rule, his hatred of guns, his family's legacy, his relationship with Alfred and Selina, how Batman's perceived by the criminals and cops, and I could keep going, but I got a bottle I have to suck. This movie feels very reactionary, as in we've never had a Batman that's felt like a Batman comic, so the studio just took all the things we like about Batman and made a bad evil soup and just served it to us. us. Then you have the overarching theme about pain and how people cope with it. This is a core theme in Batman stories, so I automatically respect them for adapting this to film, although it was a bit too on the nose for me. By the end of the second act, I was so mixed about my feelings on this movie. I was honestly interested on where they were going to take the story because so far, even though I had my problems, I was still having a good time despite its inconsistencies. Then a scene happened and made me rethink the film. If you don't know what I'm talking about, at the end of the second act, the Riddler gives himself up and is taken to Arkham Asylum. Batman comes and visits him, and this scene unfolds. The Riddler up until this point has not been seen in person with Batman and only really had one tense moment in the film. His presence has been felt through his actions, but him as a character has been largely ambiguous. So the stage has been set for him to appear in the third act, right? A bit overdue, but better late than never, right? No. Not at all. Besides this one scene, which I can't deny is phenomenal, watching Paul Diano have a mental breakdown is what I dream about, but we don't know anything about him. The Penguin has more screen time than the actual villain. If you want to compare this to Seven, at least John Doe was in the final act. Then the movie just turns into generic comic book hijinks with him having to stop the dams from being kabooned, which will turn Gotham into Bioshock. Cool, whatever, let's do this. From here on out, it's fine. With one thing that bugs me. We get a very nice takedown sequence with Batman fighting 4chan users similar to the Arkham games. That's how all the fight scenes are choreographed, and it's very visually appealing. I can say that since the movie is very dialogue based, the blips of action are welcomed. Speaking of dialogue, it could be worse. It's very comic booky and unsubtle, but I found it nice. I'm an enjoyer of that medium, so hearing that form of speech is very comforting to a certain extent. Not all lines work, but I'm willing to give it a hall pass. That's how I can actually describe the last third. Unsubtle. When Batman defeats all the enemies, the movie does what all Batman movies do. There's one guy left for Batman to wail in on. Batman asks who he is, and the goon says he's Vengeance. Batman this whole movie has been calling himself Vengeance for some reason. We have never been told why he calls himself this. Some people call him Batman, some others don't. It doesn't matter. That's not the point. So when Batman hears this, he has somewhat of an epiphany. The whole movie, Batman's arc is that he needs to learn that using Batman as a way to express his emotions is unhealthy, and that he needs to use it for the good of the people. A la with great power comes great responsibility. Personally, I don't think this was executed very well because of how little it's shown to us. I'm not talking about the actual time on screen given to the theme, I mean how much of it is physically told to us. The whole movie blatantly paints Batman and Bruce as an uninformed rich guy that just needs to stop existing. With the most egregious example being when the mayor has a chit-chat with Bruce in the first act. This scene is emblematic of the execution of this theme and is done with as much nuance and care as an argument between an anti-vaxxer and a socialist on Twitter. I support Bernie Sanders. I think we should tax the poor too. Again, it isn't the idea I have a problem with. It's the fact that the movie shoves the idea into our face without giving the audience a chance to pick it up for themselves. With all that context aside, to see Batman's whole arc resolve in this manner is just disappointing. When I was watching the movie, I was just thinking of the Martha scene from BVS and it kinda made me chuckle. Then Batman pulls a Jesus and saves people in possibly my favorite shot of the movie. He aids the fire department and runs off with Catwoman to talk about Goldman and Sachs. Then the movie concludes. Altogether, the movie's good. I love the cinematography and every technical element in the film. The script is sloppy, but passable. I love all the performances. The length might be a problem for some people, but it didn't bother me. Yes, some of the scenes go on for a bit too long, but if you care about Batman, then it won't halt your enjoyment. I almost forgot to mention the score and how great it is. Michael Giacchino is well known for being a master of his craft, and he just cements his status as one of the great American composers. The score, with the assistance of the cinematography, makes Gotham feel like the seventh layer of hell that it was meant to be. Production design in the film has nothing to be criticized, and I appreciate the practical effects that were used. If I was judging this without my bias, I'd give it a 3.5 out of 5, but I'm Batman's bitch, so I'll give it a 4. The Batman is a film that is very polarizing to me. On the one hand, this is a masterclass in filmmaking and everything I want to see in a film. On the other hand, it juggles so many ideas and isn't satisfying. What are your thoughts, internet? And don't tell me. Look to yourself. Meditate on this film, because I know I am. Alright, bye-bye.